Welcome back to the Education System Reboot channel. I wanted to share a little bit about this idea concept that I've been thinking about, the metaphors. I love metaphors. Metaphors kind of help us communicate general terms. So what you're looking at on the screen should be a musical score. Musical score is something that helps musicians and the conductor follow along and make music happen. And the reason I was thinking about this is last night I attended a performance of Mahler Symphony No. 9, which is the score I put up here. It was very well done with the Oregon Symphony. And I had actually been thinking about this a couple weeks ago, just about how a symphony is a metaphor for life. I would also give credit to Jordan Peterson a lot, because I've heard him reference in a lot of his videos this idea of a symphony and how complex it is, and yet everything's working in harmony. I mean, that's the literal term, in harmony. So my goal for this video is to play small excerpts, very short, because I'm hoping YouTube won't ding me or anything. It's just very small. Just watching the score and kind of maybe talking over it a little bit. So this is the first movement. Notice we have 2 French horns, harp, and strings, and it starts very, very scarce. It's very, so I don't know, maybe a minute or two. I'll try to point things out as we go, but here is the beginning of Mahler 9. You should be able to hear this. So it's harp. Viola. Viola again. So things are happening here. I'm trying to move my mouse to different positions. Clarinets are right there. Strings. And I'll pause there because, again, I don't want to go too far. So let's just start that. So if you've never seen a musical score, this number one is just great insight into what's going on. Now I'm just going to let it kind of scroll down. You can see it gets more intricate, more things happening. You might not even understand any of this, and that's okay. But what I would like to point out is that the structure of music works like a society, like a system. And so everybody has their role. And the thing is, for the music to come alive, for the music to inspire us as human beings, everybody has to be competent in their role. And so here's my first analogy. The education system, in my opinion, should be designed to allow for students to grow in many different skills. So number one, they have a baseline of ability to kind of, I guess you'd call it, branch out or be prepared. And so obviously at a certain point you have to specialize. So we have the specialization. Again, I'm gonna keep scrolling down a little bit. We've got all these different instruments. And you can see there's, like, this particular page has all the instruments. There's the flutes, or the piccolo, the flutes, the oboes, the English horn, the clarinets, the different clarinets, the bassoons, the horns, the trumpet, the trombone. Like, it's all there because the whole orchestra is playing right there. And so, again, I think this is something we need to remember is, first of all, you just have to get the general knowledge, right? And so as a system, we really have to be aware that we have to present the good fundamental knowledge. We also have to find a way to hold kids accountable, and we have to communicate to kids that they are part of a greater purpose, right? And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a musician, but I look at this and I go, there's no higher calling than 100 musicians getting together who are all spent tens of thousands of years of hours honing their craft, practicing, dedicating their life to something. And then when every individual works collectively towards a common goal, a bigger goal, beauty happens, right? And again, I think it's selfless, right? You have to be selfless. You are not the soloist unless it literally asks for you in this moment. You have to be prepared, right? That's why you practice. You have to be prepared for what comes your way. The music will always change. The skills needed to play the music never change. So again, as we scan through this, I'm going to go to another section just because it's a different movement. Here's I wrote this down, 59. Okay, this is the second movement. We've got different things. So again, I've queued up music on my other screen. So here is a little bit of the second movement, just again to listen for perspective. Okay, here we go. Here come the second violins. Cellos are pulling these chords. Horn. More of the orchestra about to come in. I'll pause it there. Again, so you see different roles. And this goes back to that idea that a student doesn't know their purpose, right? You don't discover your purpose until you try things. One of the things I've told students a lot is if they don't give effort, how are they ever going to discover if they actually have a talent in an area? You cannot discover that you are gifted in an area without some effort, without trying it. And again, so I look at this, it's like, this is the epitome. This is the ideal of the highest level of music making. A student who just starts music isn't going to get here for years, but it allows for this aim, right? So everything in our education system really should be getting back to this idea of aiming for a higher standard, because by aiming for a higher standard all the time, excellence is achieved, right? And I feel like we're going the opposite direction. But see, my experience in music cannot unsee what I've seen. And it's like success comes from effort. That's why I've come up with my consistent effort over time equals success. Now, I'm going to play one more excerpt just because I think, number one, it's just fun. Number two, it shows kind of the different roles of different instruments. So the second or the third movement is kind of this angry scherzo. It's very, I mean, you almost could say demonic, however you want to look at it, but it's very angry and energetic. You'll hear a little bit more some of the brass you haven't heard, like the trumpets and trombones. But here we go. This is the third movement. Again, I'm stopping in the middle. So even as I'm listening, more ideas are popping into my head. One of those ideas is you can see how everyone's doing something different, but it all works together. That's our society. And again, when a society is functioning following the rules, when an education system is functioning following the rules, when a symphony orchestra is following the rules, and the rules are laid out by the composition, right? But if they're following the rules and every member of society is putting forth their best effort and they're trying their best and they're holding themselves accountable to themselves, you know, so they're coming in prepared for their music, they're realizing that they're answerable to other people it flows. It makes a beautiful society. I've also heard it said that you can, measure a great society by the art they produce. And so again, you can call me old-fashioned here, and I'll gladly accept that. But the art that is being produced now, music and just general art, is not good. It's just not good. And I see that as a product of our society not being aligned and in harmony, right? I'm using that term. So again, I want to stick to the education system, but I think this metaphor of understanding what goes into a symphony. So I'm going to unshare my screen so I can talk a little bit more here. And I had this on so I could hear the music. So if we understand or just believe that what we just saw there makes sense, right? There's a structure to it. There's I call it vertical alignment, which is literally what it is. So I've got a pin here. So like the music is all aligned. So if an instrument plays here and another instrument plays down here at the same time, they're together. Even if what they have is more intricate, everything's lined up. And so again, it's like these small rules, when followed beautifully, create beauty and art and harmony. And they, even if it sounds chaotic in music, there's still structure to it. And so the way I look at it is, this is a metaphor for the education system. It's a metaphor for society. It's a metaphor for family, like how you handle a family. You know, I just know how, people think when they hear certain things, but if you don't know your role, how are you going to rise to the expectation, right? In education, the role of the student is to come prepared to get educated, to want to learn. Our role as the educator is to provide the information, provide the structure for how to learn it. But I believe that the student's responsibility is to take ownership of learning, apply it into their lives. Now, granted, I think we as teachers haven't, I should say, we have gotten away, I think, from being good about showing the right system, how to apply things into their life. We assume that students are going to figure that out on their own. So it's up to us, I think, as teachers to provide good templates, good modeling. But there's this balance, right? So if a teacher is coming in each day and saying, all right, I'm here to help you, I take my job seriously. One of the reasons I always wear a tie is I believe that's showing respect to my students and to myself, that I'm here to take my job seriously. I always dress up for teaching. Again, that's my personal philosophy, but that's why. There's a reason for it. I want students to know that I'm here to be serious and help them, and I take my job very seriously. I also try to tell them that they have a responsibility to walk into the room every day and take ownership of their part. And when both parts are working harmoniously, I'm going to keep using that, in harmony, then things work better. I just like, you see it in all areas of life, I think, but I think we feel like that's stifling, but in reality, when you know the rules, you know what to expect, you know what to do, you can actually improve faster because there's these guidelines that are saying, okay, this is what these are the framework, this is what you work in, so work through this. And if you start to go outside it, the music starts to sound bad, right? And just again, to use some more music analogies, like I don't know of any other subject where you strive for 99.9999999% accuracy, right? A great free throw percentage in basketball is like 90%. That's amazing. And that means you miss 1 out of 10. If every one of those musicians missed 1 out of 10 notes, and you saw how many there were, that would be a terrible performance. Even if they missed 1 out of 100, that would still be like each musician, that would still be a pretty darn bad performance. Now, let's say they miss 1 out of 1,000 notes. Okay, that's still, 90 musicians every now and then missing a note. It would, you could tell it was good, but really, and let's just assume maybe each individual has over 1,000. I mean, they easily have 1,000 notes, if not 10,000 notes over a symphony, especially like strings. But still, if within the context of 90 minutes of a symphony, which is about how long this particular piece is, and 90 musicians miss one big blip, even just one big blip, that's 90 mistakes throughout a whole piece. That's a lot, right? So again, I think this idea of music as a metaphor, or the symphony for a metaphor, like I hope I'm making this make sense, because it's one of the things that I value about music. I think it's one of the things that as people, as students, as human beings, understand what goes into truly creating a work of art, especially a symphony, and all the collaboration it takes to make it come alive off the page. I mean, not to mention just to create it in your head and put it down on paper. I think there's something just powerful about that, and I just, yeah, and I think there's lessons we can take from that to apply into our everyday lives. And so again, I mean, are you working to better yourself as a student or a teacher? Are you understanding that your role in that is answerable to other people, right? Every time you walk into a classroom, even if a student thinks to themselves, well, I'm not affecting anyone else, they technically are. They're affecting themselves in the future, but if they're disruptive, they're affecting other people that want to learn. In a music class, it's even worse because you are accountable. A sports team, right? There's another analogy. So anyway, this idea of music, especially symphonic, orchestral, symphony music, and how it works, and the intricacies, and all the skills. It's like, I know there was this thing going around a long time called the miraculous pencil, and it's about all the different people it takes to make a pencil, right? It's the same idea. How many collaborative efforts have to go into making a performance of a powerful piece of music? And then, of course, when it's done well, how it speaks to our soul. And to me, that's the meaning that students could be, that's the meaning that we could embed in students. If students understood that by working hard, that the meaning in their life can be revealed because they take responsibility of their learning, they take responsibility of their actions, they grow as human beings, they learn how to navigate the difficulties of the world through education. And when you do all these things, what's the natural byproduct? A person who's prepared to go into the real world, and metaphorically speaking, a person who's a work of art, a person who's a symphony in themselves. And so, again, I say all this because I have two young kids, and I sometimes say this to my students. It's like, I want a better world for my two kids. And over my personal growth journey, I have learned that I have something to offer. I have ideas to offer. But if they're not spoken, if I don't put them out there, then it's like that metaphor of, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? I have to be willing to put these ideas out there because I believe in them. I believe there are better ways to do things, and this idea of putting ideas out there to kind of compare them to other ideas that are currently in there. And I think, again, learning history, we can be informed from the past, and so we can learn mistakes proactively. If there was a mistake in the past and we're starting to repeat that, maybe we should take a look at that and say, that didn't turn out very well there, and there's a similarity here, so maybe this isn't the right way to go. Or maybe the greatest people, history doesn't remember ordinary people. History remembers great people, people that took chances, that worked, that had consistent effort over time. So I don't know. I don't see any way that holding kids to a higher standard is not benefiting them. That doesn't mean that there aren't issues that people have to face, but there's the idea is life's not fair, but we can make beauty out of it. We can make the most beautiful pieces of music. We have ways of expressing ourselves. So anyway, I hope that analogy made sense, and I just, again, felt compelled to do that. So as always, don't forget that consistent effort over time equals success, and I'll see you in the next video.